The first rays of morning sunlight painted the walls of Kensington Palace in soft golden colors as the royal household stirred to life on this most important day. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, opened her eyes to the gentle sound of birds singing outside her bedroom window. She stretched gracefully and smiled, knowing that today would be one of those special days that would be remembered for years to come. The palace staff had been preparing for weeks to ensure everything would be perfect for the family's appearance at Westminster Abbey. In the nursery wing of the palace, Prince Louis was already awake and full of energy, despite the early hour. His nanny helped him wash his face and brush his teeth while he chattered excitedly about the big day ahead. The youngest member of the royal family had been told many times about the importance of today's events, but at his age, he was mostly excited about wearing his special clothes and seeing all the people who would be waiting to wave at him. Princess Charlotte was in her own room carefully choosing which hair ribbon would look best with her outfit. She had inherited her mother's sense of style and loved occasions when she could dress up in her finest clothes. Her personal dresser helped her select the perfect accessories, while Charlotte practiced her royal wave in the mirror. She had been working hard to walk with the same graceful steps as her mother and was determined to make her family proud today. Prince George, the eldest of the three children, was already dressed and reviewing his responsibilities for the day with his father. As the future heir to the throne, he understood that his behavior would be watched closely by people all around the world. His private tutor had spent time explaining the historical significance of Westminster Abbey and why their presence there was so important to the British people. Prince William had been awake since before dawn, going over the schedule and security arrangements with his protection officers. He wanted to ensure that his family would be safe while still being able to connect with the crowds of people who would gather to see them. His military training had taught him the importance of preparation and attention to detail, and he applied these lessons to every public appearance. Catherine emerged from her dressing room, looking absolutely stunning in an outfit that had been carefully chosen to reflect both modern elegance and respect for tradition. Her stylist had worked with her for months to create a look that would photograph beautifully while remaining appropriate for the solemn occasion. Every detail from her jewelry to her shoes had been selected with care to create the perfect impression. Palace kitchen was bustling with activity as the staff prepared a light breakfast for the royal family. The children needed to eat something nutritious before their long day, but not too much that would make them uncomfortable during the ceremony. The chef had prepared their favorite foods in small portions, knowing that excitement might affect their appetites. As the family gathered in the breakfast room, the atmosphere was filled with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. William and Catherine discussed the day's timeline with the children, making sure everyone understood what would happen and when. They explained how important it was to wave to the people who would be waiting to see them, and to walk slowly so the photographers could take good pictures. The children's personal protection officers arrived to brief them on the security arrangements for the day. Even though they were young, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis had learned to accept that they would always be surrounded by people whose job was to keep them safe. They had grown comfortable with their security team and trusted them completely. Catherine's hairstylist arrived to put the finishing touches on her elegant hairstyle. Every strand was carefully placed to ensure it would look perfect from every angle as the cameras captured their arrival. Her makeup artist applied subtle cosmetics that would enhance her natural beauty while ensuring she would look radiant in the bright lights of the television cameras. The children's tutors arrived to give them one final review of proper royal protocol. They practiced their bows and curtsies and reviewed the importance of maintaining proper posture throughout the event. Princess Charlotte was particularly proud of her curtsy and had been practicing it for weeks to make sure it was perfect. William's valet helped him into his ceremonial uniform, making sure every medal and decoration was positioned exactly where it should be. The uniform had been worn by members of the royal family for generations and carried with it the weight of centuries of tradition. Every button was polished to a brilliant shine, and every crease was pressed to perfection. The palace communications team provided final updates on the media coverage that would surround their arrival. Journalists and photographers from around the world had gathered to document every moment of their appearance. The team wanted to ensure the family was prepared for the intense attention they would receive. As the departure time approached, the excitement in the palace continued to build. Staff members lined the corridors to wish the royal family well and to catch a glimpse of them in their finest attire. The housekeeping staff had worked through the night to ensure every surface in the palace was spotless for the day's activities. The children's nannies did final checks on their appearance, making sure their clothes were perfect and their hair was neat. They reminded the children about the importance of staying close to their parents and following all the instructions they would receive from their security team. Catherine took a few moments to call her parents to let them know how excited she was about the day ahead. Her family had always been supportive of her role as a member of the royal family, and she valued their encouragement before important events. They reminded her to enjoy every moment and to remember how proud they were of her. The final preparations were completed as the royal family gathered in the main entrance hall of Kensington Palace. They looked absolutely magnificent as they stood together, each dressed perfectly for the occasion ahead. The children were practically glowing with excitement, while William and Catherine maintained the composed dignity that had made them beloved figures around the world. Security officers conducted their final checks of the vehicles that would transport the family to Westminster Abbey. Every detail had been inspected multiple times to ensure their safety and comfort during the journey. The cars had been polished to a mirror shine and decorated with small flags that would flutter in the breeze as they traveled through London. The palace gates opened and the royal convoy began to form outside in the courtyard. The sight of the elegant black vehicles with their royal escorts created a sense of anticipation that spread throughout the surrounding neighborhood. Local residents had gathered along the palace walls, hoping to catch an early glimpse of the royal family as they departed for their grand appearance at one of Britain's most sacred and historic venues. The grand doors of Kensington Palace swung open as Prince William stepped out first into the crisp morning air. His polished boots clicked against the stone steps as he surveyed the waiting convoy of gleaming black vehicles. The lead car sat majestically in the courtyard, its royal flags fluttering gently in the morning breeze. Behind him, Catherine appeared, looking absolutely radiant in her carefully chosen outfit that sparkled subtly in the golden sunlight streaming through the palace gates. Princess Charlotte emerged next, holding her mother's hand with confidence that impressed everyone watching. Her dress moved gracefully as she walked, and her hair ribbon caught the light perfectly. She had practiced this moment many times in the palace corridors, but now that it was really happening, she felt a thrill of excitement, mixed with the importance of the occasion. Her eyes sparkled as she took in the sight of the official cars and the uniformed drivers waiting respectfully beside each vehicle. Prince George followed with the measured steps his tutors had taught him, walking with the dignity expected of a future king. His formal outfit fit him perfectly, and he carried himself with a composure that made his parents proud. The young prince understood that cameras would be watching every move he made, and he was determined to represent his family with honor. His shoes had been polished to such a shine that they reflected the morning sunlight like mirrors. Prince Louis bounded out with barely contained energy, his natural enthusiasm bringing smiles to the faces of everyone present. His nanny stayed close beside him, ready to guide him gently if his excitement got the better of him. The youngest prince looked around with wide eyes, taking in all the preparations that had been made for their journey. His formal clothes made him feel very grown up and important, even though he was still learning what all the ceremonies meant. The head of security gave a subtle nod to Prince William, indicating that everything was ready for their departure. Every route had been checked multiple times, and additional officers had been positioned along their path to Westminster Abbey. The timing had been calculated precisely to ensure they would arrive exactly when expected, while allowing for any unexpected delays along the way. Catherine paused to speak briefly with her personal assistant, who handed her a small clutch bag containing everything she might need during the day. The assistant reminded her about the schedule and whispered a few encouraging words about how beautiful she looked. Catherine smiled warmly, appreciating the support of the dedicated staff who worked so hard to make every public appearance successful. The children were guided toward their assigned vehicle, with their security officers explaining once more how the journey would proceed. Prince George would sit beside the window so people could see him clearly, while Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis would be positioned where they could wave safely to the crowds. Each child had been given specific instructions about when to wave and how to behave during different parts of the journey. William took Catherine's hand as they approached their car, pausing for just a moment to look back at Kensington Palace. This had been their home for many years, and it always felt special to leave it for important royal duties. The palace staff had gathered in the windows and doorways to wave goodbye and wish them well. Their loyal employees had become like an extended family, and their support meant everything to the royal couple. The car doors opened simultaneously as the royal protection officers moved into their practiced positions. The vehicles had been specially modified for security and comfort, with bulletproof glass and advanced communication systems. Inside, the cars were climate-controlled and equipped with everything the family might need during their journey through London's busy streets. Prince Louis climbed into his seat with help from his nanny, looking around at all the special features inside the royal car. The seats were covered in the finest leather, and there were small bottles of water and tissues placed where the children could reach them easily. He pressed his face against the window, trying to see everything in the palace courtyard before they drove away. Princess Charlotte settled into her seat with natural grace, adjusting her dress so it would not wrinkle during the drive. She had learned from watching her mother how to sit properly in formal clothes, and took pride in remembering all the lessons about royal behavior. Her excitement was evident in her bright eyes, even though she maintained the composure expected of a young princess. Prince George checked that his outfit was still perfect as he took his position by the window. He understood that many people would be watching for him during the journey, and he wanted to make sure he looked his best. His parents had explained how important it was for the royal family to connect with the people who came out to see them, and he was ready to do his part. The convoy began to move slowly through the palace. gates as crowds of people who had gathered outside burst into cheers and applause. Cameras flashed from every direction as photographers captured the beginning of the royal family's journey to Westminster Abbey. The sound of the cheering crowds could be heard, even through the specially designed windows of the royal vehicles. William and Catherine waved gracefully to the people lining the streets outside Kensington Palace. Many of these were local residents who had lived in the area for years and had watched the royal children grow up. The couple always made an effort to acknowledge the loyal support of their neighbors, who respected their privacy while celebrating their public appearances. As the convoy turned onto the main road leading towards central London, the crowds began to grow larger and more enthusiastic. People had been arriving since early morning to secure the best viewing spots along the route. Many carried small Union Jack flags that they waved energetically as the royal cars passed by. Others held homemade signs with messages of support and love for the royal family. The children pressed their faces to the windows, marveling at the sea of people who had come to see them. Princess Charlotte pointed excitedly at a group of school children who were wearing their best uniforms and waving frantically. Prince Louis bounced in his seat with delight at seeing so many friendly faces, while Prince George waved with growing confidence as he realized how much joy their presence brought to the crowds. The journey through London's historic streets became a moving celebration as the royal convoy made its way toward Westminster Abbey. Street after street was lined with people of all ages who had made special efforts to be part of this memorable occasion. The sight of the royal family traveling together created a sense of unity and pride that spread throughout the crowds like electricity. Catherine pointed out landmarks to the children as they passed, explaining the history of the buildings and areas they were traveling through. She wanted them to understand and appreciate the rich heritage of the city they called home. The children listened with interest, asking questions about the places they saw and learning more about their connection to British history. The convoy maintained its steady pace as it approached the most crowded sections of the route where thousands of people had gathered. The excitement in the air was palpable as the royal family drew closer to Westminster Abbey, where an even larger crowd was waiting to witness their grand arrival at one of Britain's most sacred and historically significant locations. The royal convoy turned the final corner and Westminster Abbey came into magnificent view, rising majestically against the London skyline. The ancient Gothic towers stretched toward the heavens, their stone surfaces glowing in the morning sunlight that streamed through the scattered clouds above. Prince Louis gasped with wonder as he saw the massive building for the first time, while Princess Charlotte and Prince George pressed closer to their windows to get a better look at the historic abbey where so many important royal ceremonies had taken place over the centuries. The crowds surrounding Westminster Abbey were unlike anything the children had ever seen before. Thousands upon thousands of people filled every available space along the streets and barriers that had been set up by the police. The sea of faces stretched as far as the eye could see, with people standing on tiptoes and holding their cameras high above their heads, hoping to capture the perfect photograph of the royal family's arrival. Television crews from around the world had positioned their equipment at strategic points around the abbey, creating a maze of cameras and broadcasting equipment. Reporters spoke into microphones in dozens of different languages as they prepared to share this special moment with viewers across the globe. The international media attention showed just how much interest there was in the British royal family and their public appearances. Catherine pointed toward the abbey's famous towers and began explaining to the children about the incredible history contained within those ancient walls. She told them about the kings and queens who had been crowned there and the important ceremonies that had taken place over nearly 1,000 years. The children listened with fascination as their mother shared stories about their ancestors and the traditions they would one day help to continue. Prince William studied the security arrangements that had been put in place around the abbey. He could see the discreet positions of the protection officers who had been working for weeks to ensure the safety of everyone attending the ceremony. The Metropolitan Police had cordoned off large areas around the building, and every person entering the secure zone had been carefully screened in advance. The sound of church bells began to ring out across London as the Abbey's bell tower announced the approaching arrival of the royal family. The deep resonant tones echoed off the surrounding buildings, creating a musical backdrop that added to the solemnity and grandeur of the occasion. Many people in the crowd stopped their conversations to listen to the beautiful sounds that had been calling people to worship and celebration for hundreds of years. Princess Charlotte smoothed down her dress and checked her reflection in the car window, making sure she looked perfect for the moment. When she would step out in front of all the waiting cameras, she had been practicing her walk and her wave for weeks and felt confident that she could handle the attention with the grace expected of a young princess. Her mother had taught her to smile naturally and to make eye contact with people in the crowd whenever possible. Prince George straightened his tie and took a deep breath as he prepared himself mentally for the formal entrance they were about to make. His tutors had explained the protocol he needed to follow and the importance of maintaining proper posture throughout the ceremony. As the future heir to the throne, he understood that his behavior would be watched closely and analyzed by royal experts and members of the public alike. The youngest prince, Prince Louis, was practically vibrating with excitement as he saw all the colorful flags and decorations that surrounded Westminster Abbey. His nanny helped him practice sitting still and reminded him about the importance of staying close to his parents once they got out of the car. Even though he was very young, he had been taught basic royal etiquette and understood that today was a very special day. As the convoy slowed to a crawl, the noise from the crowds grew louder and more enthusiastic. People were cheering and calling out messages of support for the royal family, while cameras flashed constantly, creating a dazzling display of lights. The children had experienced public attention before, but never on this scale, and they were amazed by the energy and excitement of the thousands of people who had gathered to see them. Catherine reached into her purse to check that she had everything she might need during the ceremony. Her makeup compact was there in case she needed to touch up her appearance, and she had tissues ready in case any of the children needed them. She also carried a small comb to make sure their hair stayed perfect throughout the long day ahead. The lead security vehicle pulled up to the designated arrival point directly in front of Westminster Abbey's main entrance. The massive wooden doors stood open, revealing glimpses of the magnificent interior, where guests were already seated waiting for the ceremony to begin. The ancient stone steps leading up to the entrance had been polished until they gleamed, and red carpet had been laid out to create a path fit for royalty. Prince William could see familiar faces among the officials waiting to greet them at the Abbey entrance. The Dean of Westminster stood ready to welcome the royal family, along with other senior clergy members who would be participating in the ceremony. Government officials and dignitaries had also gathered to show their respect and to witness this important moment in British royal tradition. The children's excitement was building to a crescendo as they realized that in just moments they would be stepping out of the car and into the spotlight of international attention. Princess Charlotte checked her hair one more time, while Prince George practiced his formal bow, and Prince Louis tried his best to sit still, despite his overwhelming enthusiasm for what was about to happen. Camera crews positioned themselves at the best angles to capture every second of the royal family's emergence from their vehicles. Professional photographers who had covered royal events for decades prepared their equipment, knowing that the images they captured today would be seen around the world and preserved in history books for future generations to admire. The atmosphere around Westminster Abbey was electric with anticipation, as thousands of spectators held their breath, waiting for the moment when the car doors would open. Police officers maintained their positions along the barriers while mounted guards in their ceremonial uniforms added to the pageantry and grandeur of the scene that was unfolding before the eyes of the world. Catherine took her husband's hand and squeezed it gently as they shared a quiet moment together before stepping into the public eye. They had been through many royal engagements together, but each one still brought its own special mixture of excitement and responsibility. Today felt particularly significant because of the historic setting and the presence of their three beautiful children, who were growing up so quickly before their eyes. The convoy came to a complete stop and the engines fell silent, creating a moment of perfect stillness before the doors would open and the royal family would make their grand entrance. The crowds fell quiet for just an instant as everyone prepared to witness what would surely become one of the most memorable royal appearances of the year at one of Britain's most sacred and historically important venues. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived as the car door handles began to turn and the royal protection officers moved into their carefully rehearsed positions. Prince William emerged first, stepping out onto the red carpet with the confident bearing that had made him beloved by people around the world. His ceremonial uniform caught the morning light perfectly, and every medal and decoration sparkled as he stood tall and surveyed the incredible scene before him. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause and cheers that echoed off the ancient walls of Westminster Abbey. Thousands of people who had waited for hours in the cold morning air suddenly felt their patience rewarded as they caught their first glimpse of the future king. Cameras clicked rapidly from every direction, creating a symphony of mechanical sounds that mixed with the human voices raised in celebration and joy. Catherine appeared next, and the crowd's reaction grew even more enthusiastic as she stepped gracefully from the vehicle. Her outfit was absolutely stunning and perfectly suited to the grandeur of the occasion. Every detail from her jewelry to her shoes had been chosen with care, and the result was breathtaking. She moved with the natural elegance that had made her one of the most photographed women in the world, while maintaining the warmth and accessibility that endeared her to people everywhere. Princess Charlotte was the next to emerge, and she did so with a poise that impressed everyone watching. Her small hand reached for her mother's as she stepped onto the red carpet, and her dress flowed beautifully around her as she moved. The young princess had clearly been practicing for this moment, and her confidence showed in every step she took. The crowd's reaction to seeing her was filled with genuine affection and admiration for how mature and graceful she appeared. Despite her young age, Prince George followed his sister with measured steps that showed his growing understanding of royal protocol. His formal outfit made him look very distinguished, and his posture was perfect as he took his place beside his parents. The future heir to the throne had learned to handle public attention with remarkable composure, and today he demonstrated that his royal education was progressing beautifully. People in the crowd called out his name with obvious fondness and pride. The final member of the royal family to emerge was Prince Louis, and his appearance brought smiles to faces throughout the massive crowd. The youngest prince stepped out with barely contained excitement, his eyes wide with wonder at the incredible scene surrounding him. His formal clothes made him look adorable, and his natural enthusiasm was infectious. Even the most serious royal watchers found themselves grinning at his obvious delight in being part of such an important occasion. The family came together on the red carpet, creating a picture of unity and elegance that photographers captured from every possible angle. William and Catherine positioned themselves slightly behind their children, ready to guide them gently if needed while allowing them to experience the spotlight on their own. The children stood in a neat line, each one looking absolutely perfect, and clearly enjoying their moment in the center of attention. The noise from the crowd was almost overwhelming, as thousands of people cheered and applauded the royal family's arrival. Union Jack flags waved enthusiastically from every section of the crowd, while people called out messages of love and support. The energy was electric and positive, creating an atmosphere of celebration that seemed to lift everyone's spirits, including the royal family themselves, who were clearly moved by the warm reception. Professional photographers worked frantically to capture the perfect shots, knowing that these images would be published around the world within hours. The lighting was perfect, with the morning sun creating a natural spotlight on the royal family, while the magnificent backdrop of Westminster Abbey provided the ideal setting for historic photographs. Every angle seemed to produce stunning images that would be treasured for years to come. Television cameras broadcast the scene live to millions of viewers around the globe, making this moment part of shared international experience. Commentators spoke in hushed tones about the significance of the occasion, while viewers at home watched in fascination as the royal family made their way slowly toward the Abbey entrance. The global audience was estimated to be in the hundreds of millions, all watching this single moment unfold. Catherine bent down slightly to whisper something encouraging to Prince Louis, who was looking a bit overwhelmed by all the attention. Her maternal instincts were evident as she made sure all three children felt comfortable and confident. The gesture was captured by nearby cameras and would later be praised as an example of her natural parenting style, even in the most formal situations. Prince William acknowledged the crowd with gracious waves and nods, showing his appreciation for the enthusiasm and support of the people who had gathered to see them. His military training was evident in his bearing, in his ability to remain calm and composed despite the intensity of the moment. He had learned over the years how to connect with crowds while maintaining the dignity expected of his position. The children began to wave to the crowd, following the example set by their parents and the lessons they had learned during their royal education. Princess Charlotte's wave was particularly graceful, and she seemed to enjoy making eye contact with different sections of the crowd. Prince George waved with growing confidence, while Prince Louis's enthusiastic waves brought delighted laughter from the spectators. Security officers maintained their discreet positions around the family, ensuring their safety while allowing them to interact naturally with the crowd. The protection team had rehearsed this moment many times, and their professionalism was evident in how smoothly everything proceeded. They managed to remain nearly invisible while providing complete security coverage for the royal family. The Dean of Westminster and other senior clergy members waited respectfully at the top of the Abbey steps, ready to welcome the royal family into the sacred building. Their ceremonial robes added to the grandeur of the occasion, and their presence reminded everyone of the religious significance of the venue. The ancient traditions of the church were being honored alongside the modern traditions of the monarchy. Government officials and dignitaries who had gathered for the occasion watched from their designated positions as the royal family made their way slowly up the red carpet. Many of them had attended royal events before, but the presence of the three children added a special dimension to this particular ceremony. The sight of the next generation of royals participating in these traditions was both moving and historically significant. The massive wooden doors of Westminster Abbey stood open, revealing glimpses of the magnificent interior where hundreds of guests waited inside. The ancient building seemed to glow with warm light that spilled out onto the steps where the royal family was making their approach. Everything about the scene spoke of tradition, dignity, and the continuity of British royal heritage. As the royal family reached the halfway point of their walk toward the Abbey entrance, the crowd's enthusiasm showed no signs of diminishing. If anything, the cheering grew louder as people realized they were witnessing a truly special moment in royal history. The combination of the historic setting, the perfect weather, and the obvious joy of the royal family created an atmosphere that would be remembered by everyone present for the rest of their lives. The royal family reached the magnificent stone steps of Westminster Abbey as the crowd's cheering reached its peak intensity. Prince William paused at the bottom of the steps and looked up at the towering entrance doors that had welcomed royalty for nearly 1,000 years. The ancient stones beneath their feet had been worn smooth by countless footsteps of kings, queens, and nobles who had walked this same path throughout British history. Today, they were adding their own chapter to this incredible legacy. Catherine gathered her dress slightly as she prepared to climb the historic steps, her movements graceful and elegant despite the intensity of the moment. The morning sunlight streamed through the Gothic arches above them, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced across the ancient stonework. Her jewelry caught the light beautifully as she moved, and every photographer present worked to capture the magical quality of the lighting on her stunning outfit. Princess Charlotte looked up at the massive doors with wide eyes full of wonder and excitement. She had visited Westminster Abbey before, but never as part of such an important ceremony with so many people watching. The young princess held her mother's hand tightly as they began to climb the steps together, each footfall echoing softly against the stone walls. Her dress flowed perfectly with each step, creating an image of youthful elegance that charmed everyone watching. Prince George walked beside his father, maintaining the dignified bearing that had been carefully taught to him by his tutors and parents. The young prince understood that he was participating in something historically significant, and his serious expression showed his respect for the traditions he was learning to uphold. His formal outfit made him look remarkably mature as he climbed the steps with measured movements that impressed the watching dignitaries. Prince Louis bounded up the steps with barely contained energy, his natural enthusiasm bringing smiles to the faces of everyone watching. His nanny stayed close beside him, ready to guide him gently if his excitement overwhelmed his training in royal protocol. The youngest member of the family looked around with obvious delight at the magnificent architecture surrounding them, and his joy was infectious even in this most formal of settings. The Dean of Westminster stepped forward to greet the royal family as they reached the top of the steps. His ceremonial robes rustled softly in the morning breeze, and his warm smile showed genuine pleasure at welcoming them to this sacred place. The ancient traditions of hospitality and reverence were being observed, just as they had been for centuries of royal visits to this most important of British churches. As the family approached the massive entrance doors, the sound of organ music began to drift out from within the abbey. The magnificent instrument had been played for royal ceremonies for hundreds of years, and its deep, rich tones added a sense of solemnity and grandeur to the already impressive occasion. The music seemed to welcome them home to a place where their ancestors had celebrated the most important moments of their reigns. The interior of Westminster Abbey was revealed as they crossed the threshold, and the sight was breathtaking beyond description. Hundreds of guests rose to their feet in respect as the royal family entered, creating a sea of movement throughout the ancient nave. The soaring Gothic arches stretched high above their heads, while magnificent stained glass windows cast rainbow patterns of colored light across the stone floors and pillars. Catherine paused just inside the entrance to help Prince Louis adjust to the grandeur of the interior space. The young prince was clearly amazed by the size and beauty of the abbey and needed a moment to take in all the incredible details surrounding him. His mother's gentle guidance helped him focus on walking forward, while still allowing him to appreciate the magnificent setting they had entered. The processional down the central aisle of the abbey began with the royal family walking slowly and deliberately toward their designated seats. Every step was watched by the hundreds of guests who filled the ancient pews and by millions of television viewers around the world. The carpet beneath their feet was deep red and had been specially laid for this occasion, adding to the sense of ceremony and importance. Prince William acknowledged various dignitaries and friends as they made their way through the abbey. His military training showed in his ability to maintain perfect posture, while still connecting personally with people he recognized in the congregation. The future king understood the importance of balancing formal protocol with genuine human connection, and he managed both aspects beautifully. Princess Charlotte walked with increasing confidence as she moved through the abbey, surrounded by so much history and beauty. The young princess had been learning about the significance of Westminster Abbey in her studies, and seeing it filled with people celebrating was clearly exciting for her. Her natural grace and poise impressed everyone watching as she handled the formal processional with remarkable skill for someone her age. The magnificent altar at the far end of the abbey provided a stunning focal point as the royal family made their way forward. Centuries of royal ceremonies had taken place in this same space, and the weight of that history seemed to fill the air around them. Golden decorations caught the light streaming through the ancient windows, while flowers and ceremonial items added splashes of color to the solemn stone surroundings. Prince George maintained his composure throughout the long walk down the aisle despite the intensity of attention focused on him. The young prince had learned to handle public scrutiny with remarkable maturity, and today he demonstrated that his royal education was progressing exactly as it should. His serious expression showed his understanding of the significance of the moment and his respect for the traditions he was participating in. The organ music swelled as the royal family reached their destination within the abbey, creating a moment of pure majesty that would be remembered by everyone present. The combination of the magnificent architecture, the beautiful music, and the elegance of the royal family created an atmosphere that seemed to transport everyone back through the centuries of British royal tradition. Guests throughout the abbey watched with obvious admiration and respect as the royal family took their places for the ceremony. Many of these distinguished visitors had traveled from around the world to be present for this special occasion, and their presence added to the international significance of the event. The gathering represented the very best of British society and the global community that respected and supported the royal family. Prince Louis finally settled into his designated place, still looking around with wide eyes at all the incredible sights surrounding him. His family's patient guidance had helped him navigate this complex and formal situation with success, and his obvious delight in the experience brought warmth to what could have been an intimidating occasion for such a young child. As the royal family settled into their seats, the noise from the crowd outside could still be heard faintly through the ancient walls of Westminster Abbey. Thousands of people remained gathered around the building, sharing in the celebration even though they could not see directly what was happening inside. Their continued presence and enthusiasm showed the deep affection and respect that the British people had for their royal family. The ceremony was ready to begin as the royal family took their final positions within Westminster Abbey. They had successfully completed their grand arrival, demonstrating once again why they remained beloved figures not just in Britain but around the world. Their combination of dignity, tradition, and genuine warmth had created a perfect beginning to what would surely be a memorable and historically significant occasion in the magnificent setting of one of Britain's most treasured buildings.